Hello, everybody, and welcome into the place to be. This is Chef, the one and only, coming back to you a year later. It's been a hot minute since I've been doing any streams and videos, so I apologize for the lack of them, but that's going to change. Luckily, I have a new assistant, Angel. She's taking a nap so that she can be ready for you all season long. I know season's about to start. Training camps are banging off, and you needed to know who to draft. Well, a lot of you have already been watching content, so I figured I'd give you a little mixed batch in 14 of my players. It is the first of a list that I'm going to keep extending the next few weeks. But in this list, I have some players you will already be drafting, already know of, some that have slipped through the cracks into your free agency that you grabbed on a few $5, and others that are still chilling on the wire because nobody knows what they're missing out on. So get onto it now before it's too late. This is not the place for any fancy things. We just straight up tell you the information. So, with no further ado, number 14. It is Mr. Roman Wilson. This man is bred to win. All right? The guy was in high school, helped his team go to 38 consecutive wins, 4 state championships, to only go on to college and then help Michigan get to 2 back-to-back playoff runs, including a national championship. Does he blow you off the charts? No. He's pretty good athletically. He's got himself some speed, and it comes into the form of a 4.37 40. He doesn't have a lot of moves. He's just got like a little shimmy shake, but it is good enough to get by some guys. He's just built to work hard and win based on his wits and his talent. He catches a lot of balls with good hands and keeps them away from his body. Okay, he can beat a man in coverage, but likely he can be taken off his route with some more physical corners. Even if he's taken off his route, though, he's going to still give it that effort to try and become a available target for that quarterback. He can put down some blocks. He's just that team effort guy, which is really nice, which you want to see. So he'll be earning some targets in general or earning some playing time. He kind of reminds me of a Julian Edelman. So Pickens will be the beast for that offense. He essentially is going to be that DK Metcalf for Russell Wilson. And I feel like Roman Wilson will be kind of more that Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Lockett type that was available for Russ. There's not a lot of depth in Pittsburgh, so it's Calvin Austin who's standing in his way, really not anybody else. And outside of that, I think he's going to be more so deployed as a gadget player. He doesn't really have the same pedigree that Roman Wilson does. So he is somebody that you can get for cheap. Just as a heads up to you, his stats, he doesn't really, again, like I said, blow you out of the water, but it's just enough to let you know that he has some steady improvement. His first year in 2020 only played for 6 games with 9 catches and 122 yards on him. It was 13.6 yards per catch with 1 touchdown. Next year, sophomore year, 420 yards on 25 receptions. He had about 16.8 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. So some steady improvement. Backs it up the next year with the same amount of receptions and 25, less yardage and 376, but 15 yards per catch and still 4 touchdowns. His senior year, the one that's the most important one, where they go to a championship, he catches the ball double that amount for 48 receptions for 789 yards, doubles his yardage. It keeps that yards per catch at 16.4, but has the most touchdowns of his career at 12. He's had 6 kickoff returns in his career also, so he is very versatile. Even if he doesn't automatically take over that number 2 position, he can still get on the field for kickoff returns. Number 13, Rasheen Ali. Derrick Henry is the starting running back for Baltimore. However, you do have Justice Hill in the backfield, and if you know anything about Baltimore, their offense is always injured. Okay? Their water sucks out there. Something along those lines because they are always hurt. With that said, why would you not get Rasheen Ali? Keaton Mitchell had a bad injury last year and has been injured most of his, well, not most of his career, but he's been injured before. That said, he is somebody who is not going to be available anytime soon. Even if he is, that lateral agility doesn't come back right away with those ACL, MCL injuries. We've seen this before. We saw it with Breece Hall, who is an amazing running back. It took him forever to still come back, and then he crushed it, but he still didn't look the same as he's going to this year. When you see him this year, you're going to be like, oh, wow, that's what healthy looks like. Okay? Rasheen Ali, 6 foot, 200 pounds. He plays with great awareness. He understands the position of running back extremely well. He ran track in college and will display a 4.4 40 speed. He has elusiveness, the patient runner with good pass block, and a receiver out of the backfield. He should beat out Justice Hill probably after a few weeks, or like I said, when those injuries strike. Ali did a little bit of kick returning earlier in his career, so he also can end up on the special teams. People keep forgetting about these special teams changes. It is more so set up where these kick returns are going to be run plays, like zone schemes. You're going to be wanting to get those blockers into odd positions. It's not going to just be man to man every single time, line up on each other and go. It's not. It's going to be more running plays. And you will see a lot of these guys, like Ali, find a role there because it's just easier for them to put a running back out there who can catch the ball, that they can rely on, and is going to understand that short 10-yard blocking scheme that they have to get through and hit the holes. Not all the time. There's going to be some wide receivers that are still very good at that. Can't change what specialties are, you know? So, 2020, he had 6 games for 5 attempts and 22 yards. Basically, didn't even really play, redshirted. The next year, follows it up with 13 games for 250 attempts and 1,400 yards at 5.6 yards per attempt and 23 touchdowns. He also added 46 receptions for 342 yards. Who would you not add to your team if that is the stats that they're putting up? Why he's falling through, I don't know. Because he's on Marshall, because they made a movie like justifying like how these players are really good and they're getting back to themselves now. Like I don't understand. Don't sleep on him. Like we did this so many times with Rashad White, with the Fortes, with all these running backs who just keep running the yards and catching the balls. You know what's valuable? When you don't take sacks and you still make positive plays. These guys can block, catch, and run. What else do you want? The next year, only had 3 games played with 47 attempts. It was an injury season, I'm sure, or is one of those COVID ones. But had 273 yards at 5.8 yards per attempt and 1 touchdown, still catching the ball twice for 10 yards. The following year, his senior year, 12 games with 202 attempts for 1,100 yards, 5.4 yards per attempt, and 15 touchdowns, adding in again 28 receptions for 213 yards and a touchdown. This is what you want. Even if Derrick Henry is the one who's getting all of the touches, like he's not going to be the one that they want out there every single play. They're going to run him to the ground, but not before the playoffs start. He's there to help them win a championship, not to like help them make the playoffs. They don't give a shit. They've done that before. They don't have a ring. They aren't Beyonce and have one on it. Okay? They need one. Number 12, Frank Gore Jr. Frank Gore Jr. Okay? Tell me why in a class full of Hall of Famer children that we ignore every single one who is not Marvin Harrison Jr. All right? I get it. Tariq Owens, not super productive, but dude runs like his dad. Like he's got that awkward lengthy speed thing going. Brennan Rice, hello. Who do you think is the best wide receiver in all of NFL history? Maybe his son can't be terrible, and he's in a situation on the Chargers. But it's not about them right now. It's about Frank Gore Jr., who outproduced his dad in all 4 years of college, was very consistent with his rushing yards and receiving, and also caught a few kick returns. Could pass block, can do everything. Basically, a prototypical running back just doesn't have the speed that we like. Speed. It's not always about how fast you run. How many guys have we seen be good? Jerome Bettis, ring a bell, wasn't exactly running a 4.3 40. But anyways, here we are back to Frank Gore Jr. He does run a lot like his dad. He does have a 4.58 40. Not exactly the most elusive dude, but he can wiggle. He can get by some guys. He can find the holes. He's always falling forward, which is very good to do when you're on an offense that's going to need those yards because they don't have Stephon Diggs anymore. They don't really have the wide receiver core that they think that they do. At least they have 2 tight ends who hopefully can stay healthy. With that, Dawson Knox is likely going to be the one who's lining up and blocking for Frank Gore Jr. Everyone is being hyped up on Ray Davis, which I get. He's had 3 productive years. He's had to fight for everything. He's one of, like, I think 12 children. He is someone who you want to see that story go through. That's fine. I'm all for cheering for Ray Davis. He is exactly the same height as Frank Gore Jr. in 5'8", but he has about 30 pounds on him. So that is someone you do want in the goal line, red zone area, trying to score those touchdowns. However, Frank Gore Jr. can do that. So it's not like he's going to have 0 chances at it. They're going to have 3 running backs that they're going to need to rotate in that rotation. And Ray Davis isn't the one that you want out there exactly passing, protecting. You don't want him out there protecting on pass plays. Not someone that I would be running him out there to do. Talking about Frank Gore Jr.'s career. His first year. He had 10 games with 121 attempts for 708 yards at 5.9 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns. He added in 9 catches that he turned into 97 yards and 1 touchdown. It's his first year. 12 games the next year. Added in 50 attempts with 179 for 801 yards, so increased it by 100. Lost some yards per attempt at 4.5, but increased touchdowns at 5 and increased receptions. 24, 155, but still no touchdowns this year. Junior year, 13 games for 228 attempts, increasing the workload again, but puts it to 1,382 yards, 6.1 yards per attempt, and 9 touchdowns. Adds in 19 receptions for 219 yards, no touchdowns. His senior year, 231 attempts for 1,131 yards at 4.9 yards per attempt and 10 touchdowns. He had 27 receptions for 221 yards and 3 touchdown receptions that time. So he finished his career with 4,700 yards. All right. 4,700. And let's see, 19, 20, 31 touchdowns. He got better every year. Very consistent. I mean, don't you think Buffalo wants that? I do. He's cheap. Get him as cheap now. I mean, he's going way after Ray Davis. You can buy it. You can probably get him super late in your drafts, rounds 24 through 28. Maybe throw someone like a little bit of fob for him or whatever. Some random trash that they like. Isaac Guerendo. Okay, he's a running back on the 49ers, clocking in at 6 foot, 220 pounds. He is the biggest running back that is on their roster and quite possibly the fastest. He's running a 4.32 40. He has similar ability in the sense of he can catch and run like CMC. However, CMC is the one. Okay? He is like Neo. He's the one. I'm not being dismissive of CMC. They are going to have to lessen his workload. Yes, Elijah Mitchell is very good. Was very good. First year. I don't know if he still is. Maybe during OTAs, training camps, practice, everything except for the game, or when he's out there, he can't run more than 2 plays. That's fine. I'm not being dismissive of the man's ability. However, Guerendo is much more reliable, sturdy. The best ability everyone tells you is availability. So if you have the luxury of being on the field as CMC's backup, who can also still run the ball very well and catch passes, I think you're going to see some playing time. He splits gaps like a monster. He runs very hard through them. Gives me a whole bunch of Isaiah Pacheco vibes in that he's going to hit you hard. He's got a few moves, kind of like a shimmy shake, but he's mostly just a one straight line runner who's got slight hip movement and will just get by you. He breaks arm tackles easy. He runs low to the ground. He's just someone that it's why not take a flyer on him? They add running backs every single year. I get it with the Mason and Trey Sermon and all these other guys that they just kind of get. They think we're good. We think they're good. They end up on some random team, and we still keep holding on to them because Shanahan drafted them and they believed in them. But this one feels slightly different. Slightly different. I would take a stab on him in every single league. He's going late. He can probably on your rookie drafts, 3rd round. Everything else, you're going to get him probably 17, 18, 19 rounds. He didn't play a lot through college, so there's not a lot of worn tread on those tires. He's still pretty fresh. He does have very soft hands, which I was mentioning. He can catch the ball really well. So his first year, he caught one pass for he ran the ball one time for 1 yard and caught one pass and got one kick return. So it was all ones. Next year he had a COVID, so he didn't get to play much more for that. But then the first real year he had that will give him, I mean, they actually played some games. He had 23 attempts, 4 games for 160 yards at 7 yards per attempt and a touchdown with 2 catches. His next year, which is the more relevant, we had 64 attempts at 385 yards, 6.6 yards per attempt at 5 touchdowns. He ended up having also 17 receptions for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. He left Wisconsin at that point to go to Louisville, where he ended up getting the ball 142 times for 810 yards, 6.1 yards per attempt, and 11 touchdowns, with also 22 catches and 234 yards. His obvious most productive year, and when he went to a new school, new system, learning it all. So this guy feels like he hasn't had a chance to hit his peak yet. A lot of these guys are going to be weird coming out of this COVID stuff, man, because they didn't really get to play. So you got to be mindful. Like, if someone's 5, 6 years old, this is a different kind of dynasty right now because we are all in a pandemic. Well, still, I guess, in a pandemic, and you got to just be mindful. Don't just blow everybody off because they don't seem to be as young as you want. Devontae Walker, he is our next one. At 6'1", 190 pounds, wide receiver for Baltimore. He eats up yards in a hurry. He kind of runs like a gazelle. He's got very long legs, super smooth runner. He can be physical with some ability to break tackles, but he really lacks the ability to get lateral. When he's going into a break, his hips are high. He doesn't really come out very fluid. Even when he's breaking into the middle of the field, his routes are very rounded. They come off strange and odd. They're not clean and cutting. So it's just needs a little bit of tightening up. He is definitely somebody who is going to be running deep routes, getting screens, or maybe starting off on kick returns. He's a very much so, in my opinion, a project player, but he's going to have opportunities on the Baltimore Ravens just because of lack of wide receiver depth. They really only have a few guys that are there that are already injury prone, and Zay Flowers is more than likely going to be the healthiest wide receiver that they have because he made it through a full season. That's rookie year, which is very good. Most of their wide receivers don't. So based on opportunity alone, he will be out there. Doesn't mean that he's going to be the best wide receiver on that team. No, I think it's Zay Flowers by a mile. But he can at least take the top off the team. Ooh, hope you guys can be able to watch me catch a fly live. I got 2 of them in here that drive me nuts. The cat's sleeping. She can't even help me attack right now. So, where were we? Project player, probably going to be on the taxi squad unless he just somehow gets a pull up. But we know Lamar is a great deep ball thrower, and I feel like he's just going to get open. He kind of gives me off those Jameson Williams vibes. He only played in college ball for 3 years. He went from a small school to UNC and still had success that year, even though that year he was suspended. So, or not suspended, I figure it wasn't eligible. That's what it was. He wasn't eligible because, I guess, of the transfer. So he didn't get to play the first few games. I don't even know if they let him on the practice field. And then he had to kind of figure out his chemistry with Drake May later on. Runs a 4.3640. And what was the last thing I put about him? Needs more time to develop, but could be dangerous if he commits to the craft of wide receiver and the nuances of route running. Or I could be totally wrong and he could just run past people and never have to learn anything with 4.3640 speed, which is true. First year, 5 catches, 124 yards at 24.8 yards per catch and 1 touchdown. So that the yards per catch is very crazy right there because, like I said, he eats up ground real quick and runs like a gazelle. Those long legs are just stretching real quick. All of a sudden, he's gone. Next year, 58 catches for 921 yards at 15.9 yards per catch and 11 touchdowns. He even had 3 runs for 29 yards and 1 touchdown. That last year with Drake May, in the 8 games he played, which, like I said, he had to catch back up, but he still ended up having 41 receptions for 699 yards, 17 yards per catch, and 7 touchdowns, which is a very effective year considering they barely got to play. So, project player, in my opinion, but worth a draft. I mean, you can get him very, very late, if not on waiver wires. Okay. Every single draft or every single stream, I watch this person go unannounced, and I'm confused. Now, Jordan Whittington is from Texas, okay? He's 6'1", 204 pounds, and he's on the wide receiver core of the Los Angeles Rams now. We have been talking about Puka Nacua. As in, most of the community, most of the fantasy world in general has been talking about Puka because he was the rookie sensation who set everything on fire last year, and everybody's saying, who is the next Puka? Question. We're looking for Puka Nacua, who was drafted to the Rams. His replacement in the league, as in who's the next of him, but we're not looking back to the organization that drafted Puka Nacua to see if Jordan Whittington is the same idea. Well, could be. I mean, don't you think that we should start with them first and be like, hey, who's that guy? Like we did last year with, hey, who's Puka? All right. So Jordan Whittington, like I told you, his size, and he also in high school played some basketball. Played multiple positions in college football and high school football. He played college. He played quarterback and halfback. He's a former four-star recruit who had several offers from different schools. Like Puka, though, he had several injury issues. His second season was cut short due to surgery, and his third cut short due to injury as well. The rest of his college career was just cut short due to bad quarterback play. Quinn Ewers wasn't really it. Tutu Atwell is someone who's going to be very high on the pecking order for the Rams, but outside of Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and then Tutu Atwell, I mean, you have a bunch of randoms in there. You have Ben Skoranek, and I don't know if Demarcus Robinson is still there. I think he's in Pittsburgh now. But really, you don't have a lot of wide receiver depth there. So Jordan Whittington could be that guy. He's someone who breaks a lot of tackles, not as many as Puka Nacua. Doesn't seem to get as deep behind the defenses as Puka did in college, but he definitely has some speed and some ability. I mean, his speed more so comes out in just random bursts. It's not like he's fast. I think he ran a 4.6, 8.40, which is obviously not the most exciting, but he does have some ability to kind of just move. So even still, he knows routes. He seems to get in between the zones and soft areas. He finds slant routes to be very effective. He's good with screens. I just saw how Texas was using him in different ways, and it seemed to be pretty effective. So don't you think on a better offense with a better offensive-minded coach that they'll find a way to put him in there, especially if Puka and Cooper Kupp are drawing most of the attention. He could just be an underneath guy who's going to get yards. Worth adding, especially because, again, I feel like he's going to have a role sooner than later. All right. We are down to number 7. Johnny Wilson. 6'6", 231-pound wide receiver from Florida State University. Also went to Arizona State. Currently a wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a former four-star recruit. He wasn't getting much playing time at ASU, so he entered the portal to FSU and was the leading target. For his size and rather athletic abilities, he makes contested catches while breaking tackles. He has long arms with good range to reach and touch balls that he can make more catchable, but does have several drops on film, and his breaks look really clunky. They do. He almost looks like if he has bad knees at times, but to be fair, they're low to the ground, so compared to the rest of his body, which is true. Project type of player that may have more playing time if Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown goes down. Likely that Philadelphia is going to hold him on hopes that A.J. Brown at the end of his deal, they can kind of put him in there as a substitute so they don't have to break the bank, because they usually don't. He runs a 4.52 40, so not exactly sound barrier breaking, but he is still athletic enough, quick enough, and can catch balls and rangy enough. And again, he's nearly 6'7". Depending on the scale, he's 6'6" or 6'7". Most wide receivers are nothing close to that. Especially to have the athletic ability that he does at that size is pretty impressive. Arizona State barely let him play, but when he did get to Florida State, he did put up some yards and showed that ability a little bit. So Arizona gave him 3 games for 6 catches and 89 yards. He was doing 14.8 yards per catch. The next year, 5 games for only 12 catches, 154 yards, 12.8 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown. Florida State at least gave him the chance the next year for 43 catches at 897 yards. He was averaging 20.9 yards per catch and 5 touchdowns, which is amazing for just out of nowhere, but still within that junior year, which is nice. And then 10 games as a senior for 41 catches and 617 yards at 15 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns. More than likely going to be a taxi squad guy. I hope that he develops and is something good because they really have the room and the depth for it. Outside of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, they've been just pulling in random people for the slot. who I'm going to address next. But while we're still on Wilson, I just really feel like because he's that size speed kind of combination, they want him to learn from AJ Brown and hopefully become the next version of it on either a better level, more than likely a lesser level, or a better price. In that slot is my man, the one and only Aeneas Smith. Dude gives me Steve Smith vibes and just how he's aggressive in fights and he runs some routes. Now, Steve Smith is a one of one. All right, I watched him destroy my Bears several times in playoffs, but Aeneas Smith I really do like. 5'9", out of Texas A&M for 190 pounds. He is currently another wide receiver on Philadelphia. He can make jukes in a phone booth. He could probably easily evade the elderly on a discounted shopping spree day. Can return kicks, get deep, beat man, zone. He's great with screens and slants. He has really good vision to set up blocks and kind of runs like an RB with the ball in his hands. He has great contact balance and always tries to make a move to break a tackle. 4.47 40 speed, so good enough. First year, 22 catches for 248 yards and 11.3 yards per catch. Adds in 3 touchdowns. Next year, 10 games, 43 receptions for 564 yards, 13 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. He adds in 49 rushing attempts. Mind you, 5'9", 190, 49 rushing attempts with 233 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's showing you that he has a different kind of ability. He can hit the holes, he can find gaps that most other guys can't. So when he's in the open field, don't you think he's going to be running away from defenders pretty well? That next year, 12 games for 47 catches and 509 yards. So far, he's doing good. 10.8 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns. Keeps scoring, keeps getting himself some space. His last 2 years are his best 2 years, even though that one was shortened. It was only to 4 games in 2022, which he had 15 catches for 291 yards, still at that 19.4 yards per catch and 2 TDs, closing up his senior year with 53 catches for 795 at 15 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns. So him, I do not think is going to be as much of a taxi squad guy because Philadelphia's wide receiver room, I guess, is still open. I'm not sure if it's still Almine Zacchaeus or who else they added in the slot there. I'm sure it's just some other random wide receiver like a Rondale Moore or something that they're just going to throw in there just to try and get some targets. And it's just some injury guy who they're trying to get their way through. But this is the dude. I'm telling you, Aeneas Smith, he's just going to find his way on there, and Jalen's not going to be able to take his eyes off him because A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are so good. They can push that field, they can get down deep, and then you're going to have some little short man running real fast in the middle of the field, juking dudes out. And Jalen likes to throw to those guys. He does. They keep trying to find him somebody better there, but they're just trying not to break the bank, and here you do it. And a super late draft pick who's very efficient. What are we at? 5, 6. You know what? This is the math stream, so let's give up on the math. Although I'm talking so many numbers. Okay. The Washington brothers. They aren't actually brothers as far as I know, but since they're both in the same wide receiver core now in Miami, I'm going to talk about them both. My personal favorite between the two is Taj Washington. Malik Washington, I feel like, has the most upside, but I like Taj Washington. He is the taller but smaller of the two. So he did high school track, was a 3-star recruit, and runs a 4.5 240. He tested all right athletically. He tries to fight through contact and seems to find open areas in zone. He can also return kicks and have a special teams role or slot value right away. They don't really have anybody other than Odell Beckham in that slot, and he is still someone who suffers through injury often. And if anything, you're going to be learning from Odell Beckham, so he's going to teach you how to become a better wide receiver. I feel like he probably played some kind of role in that for Zay Flowers last year. His first 2 years were at Memphis, where he didn't really do much of anything. I guess at least the first, it was 3 catches for 32 yards, averaging 10.7 yards per catch, but no touchdowns. That next year at Memphis, he caught 43 balls and turned that into 743 yards at 17 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns. Also had 1 rushing touchdown, which is pretty good for your sophomore year. Transfers to USC, where he hooks up with Caleb, and he gets 12 games for 54 catches and 602 yards, 11.1 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown. The next 2 years with Caleb, 50 receptions and 59 receptions for 785 and for 1062, averaging both over 15 yards per catch with a high of 18 and 6 touchdowns and 8 touchdowns. So he kept getting better. All right. I just think that this is somebody that you want to add into that team because, again, there's a lot of speed and a lot of open area. They scheme everything up pretty well. Why not just get a piece of that offense? Tua literally just has to dump the ball down to most of these people, and they're going to just take it to the house because they are so good over there. Malik Washington would fit more in that house category, okay? He runs more speed than Taj at a 4.4740. He even has a 4.26 shuttle, and he had a 6.86 6.87 three-cone drill, which is very nice. The vertical is 42 inches, so he can get up there and get it. He has some good straight line speed, can make some cuts, but better at single cut while running straight. He can make some contested catches and find some holes in the zone, and he has the ability to break some tackles. He'll likely more find a role in the slot or as a kick returner. I find him more as our taxi squad player than I do Taj Washington, but it could easily go the other way. They're both going to be toss-ups, taxi squad guys. One of them could get lucky, one could not. For the most part, he didn't do much at Northwestern because their offense didn't really allow it. First 2 years of his career, only had 6 catches and 5, but his real first breakout year was 44 receptions for 578 yards, averaging 13.1 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns. That next year, his last year at Northwestern was 65 catches for 694 yards, 10.7 yards per catch and 1 touchdown. He transfers then to Virginia. He's trying to get out of the Northwestern system, which was good for him. Ends up with 12 games with 110 receptions for 1,426 yards at 13 yards per catch and 9 touchdowns. That's that ceiling that you're looking for. We also have another player that we're going to be discussing in the next video who's very similar in that he broke out his last year, and we were doubting him as well. But I just am telling you, it's worth throwing out as a flyer. You're going to get him cheap. I mean, what if they move on from Tyreek, Waddle, or what if they just need somebody out there? They get injured. You still have a lot of offense on that team that needs to happen. This man is very hard to find in the universe. His name is Terrell Jennings. Okay, he is a running back out of Florida A&M. Very hard to find any highlights and stuff on this guy. I don't know why, but oddly enough, it is. This is a huge dart throw, but I feel like I have to put it out there in all sincerity, just because a lot of the things that I've been watching video wise and things the players that I've been studying, they've been just slowly creeping into the fantasy world. And I've been months and years ahead on the radar, and I just want to put this out there. I want it on video that I'm saying these names because why not? Someone's got to say them. I have a big mouth and a camera. I feel like that could easily qualify me. But Terrell Jennings, to sum it up, he played 44 games in his college career. He finished up with 281 rushing attempts for 1,860 yards and 24 touchdowns. He is 6 foot, 217 pounds. Okay. Last year, in the 13 games he did play, he ran the ball 120 times for 704 yards and 10 touchdowns. His speed is like a 4.47. He does have a lot of running, like Isaiah Pacheco, with a few more moves in his arsenal. He's very aggressive and a strong runner that holds the ball well and tries to punish defenders. He will be buried on this depth chart, but I could see him easily starting on special teams or earning a role passing up Gibson by week 5 or 6. I'm starting him on my taxi squad. There is a lot of running backs on that team. They are a very mixed team right now. Young wide receivers, ancient tight end, veteran quarterback, rookie quarterback, and they have rookie and veteran running backs as well. Ramondre Stevenson is the dude there, but he is not going to be as bursty and as strong as he was 2 years ago. I think that they kind of beat him into the ground a little bit, which is why they brought in Antonio Gibson, who I still can't tell if he's going to be good. He was good, and then what happened? I don't know. Different coaches were saying every time it's a coach this, coach that. I mean, Bieniemy was supposed to be the one to help him out. Brian Robinson got all the carries. Brian Robinson wasn't somebody that Bieniemy even really wanted on the team. So, I don't know. But I want this guy on my team just because he just runs. Like, he just runs hard. He just runs with passion. He wants to score when you see him. He's trying to do something with the ball. And I like that. I like that approach. I like that it's important in the games that you want to win. And we know Patriots offense, at least in the olden days, was very much play your part. I feel like he can do that. We have 3 left. We're making our way. All right. Keelan Robinson. I've been saying this name for so long. It is slowly starting to come around. My beast. But Keelan Robinson is 5'8", 191 pounds, a running back for the Jaguars. There has been all sorts of drama being talked about lately with Tank Bigsby. I don't even need the drama to know that that man was great at Auburn, but he's not going to be great for the NFL. He doesn't have the size, the speed, the things that you want. I mean, I guess he's big enough. He's got the size to take hits, but I don't see him really running 5 yards to a goal line, scoring really well. If he was, then why was Travis Etienne getting all the touchdowns? They weren't all in the goal line. Dude had to break a lot of runs to score. I like Keelan Robinson a lot. He's a former 4-star prospect. He was great in high school. He went to Alabama his freshman year, where he opted out due to COVID his sophomore year, and then entered the transfer portal. There, I can't wake up. I apologize, but we'll get there. Okay, take a sippy sip. Eats like spinach. Hey. So he went to Texas. So you're thinking, oh, Alabama recruit. Next year misses out because of COVID. Coming back into Texas, they run the ball a lot. This dude had to crush it. Did you know his name before just now? I don't blame you. If you didn't, it's okay. You know why? Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, and new 5-star recruit Cedric Baxter Jr. That is why you don't hear his name. That is why he is somebody that no one has really recognized up until this conversation that I'm just leading you to now. While he was there, mostly doing special teams work and filling in for when they were just needed a break, he ended up with his first year at Alabama, 39 attempts for 254 yards, averaging 6.5 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns. At Texas, his first year, obviously 2021, 45 attempts for 322 yards at 7.2 yards per attempt and 3 touchdowns. He adds in 7 catches for 57 yards at 8.1 yards per catch. The dude is getting 6 and 7 yards per run and then 8 yards per catch. Okay. 13 games to 25 attempts for 86 yards. That's his worst one at 3.5 yards per attempt and 0 touchdowns. But he adds in 20 receptions, his most, for 219 yards and 3 touchdowns. The final year at Texas happens to be this last year. Again, Jonathan Brooks. 12 attempts for 134 yards at 11.2 yards per attempt and 3 touchdowns. He adds in 8 receptions for 56 yards, but no touchdowns. He can kick return, he can catch out of the backfield. He has great contact balance while running low to the ground and protects the ball very well. You can run him up the middle, to the edge, screen. He's just versatile. He runs at a 4.4 240 with a 4.3 shuttle and put up 20 bench reps, so he is not weak. He is more like Etienne than Bigsby is, plus the new kick return rules, he'll play a role right out of the gate. If your league includes yards for special teams, which almost all leagues should now, he's a must get. Okay, number 11 or number 2, whichever way we're going. Remember, this is not for Matt, okay? Don't join this podcast stream just for Matt. All right? You just joined because you're like, man, Chef sounds cool. That voice could be very indifferent. It's either sexy or terrifying. You'll get 1 to 3 bad dad jokes per episode, and you might learn something. Also, you'll feel great about your hair because mine is obviously gone. Is it? Number 12, 212. Dallin Holker. Okay? Dallin Holker has a cool name. He sounds like he should be in Beer Fest. He's not. He is a tight end for New Orleans. 6'3", 241 pounds. He went to Brigham Young for 3 years. That is the best college I've never really heard of before going to Colorado State. He started college in 2018, and after his freshman year, he decided to go on a Mormon missionary for 2 years before returning to college football in 2021, where he learned more about himself and the playbook. At Colorado State, he was the starting tight end and blossomed. He runs a 4.78 40 and scored very well athletically at the combine. He also finished as one of 3 finalists for the Mackey Award his senior year, which is the best tight end in college football. His first year, he had a whopping 19 catches for 12.4 yards per catch and 235 yards with 1 touchdown. The next year was 14 receptions for 200 yards at 14.3 yards per catch with 1 touchdown. That next year, he has 3 games with 9 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown at 9.6 yards per catch. His final year, which is the one that matters the most when he transfers to Colorado State, where he finally displayed that athletic ability and actually got to play more. He had 12 games, caught the ball 64 times, 12 yards per catch at 767 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's the kind of look that I want. Right now, Juwan Johnson, we know, is in and out of injury. He has been that for the last 5 years. Okay? We also know that Taysom Hill is Taysom Hill. He's going to do his own thing, whatever that means. It could be blocker, tight end, running back, quarterback, kicker, who knows, water boy, towel man, massage guy, I don't know, equipment manager. He's going to play a lot of roles. If your league has 17 available positions for Taysom Hill, then probably get him. Okay? Otherwise, Dallin Holker is who I'm orienting towards. We do know that David Carr likes to throw the tight end. Juwan Johnson won a lot of championships last year.